What's going on, guys? So today we're out here at Colonia del Rey RV in Corpus Christi, Texas, and we're going to talk all about RV refrigerators. Specifically, the three most common types of refrigerators you will probably see in any RV that you're looking at. Now, what you're looking at in front of you is something that's kind of unique. This is actually a 12-volt refrigerator. Now, these are becoming increasingly more popular in your mid-size travel trailers and even some fifth wheels, specifically because this operates in a little bit different fashion than your traditional house-style or residential refrigerator, as well as your gas-electric style refrigerators. So your gas-electric style refrigerators are what a lot of people have come to recognize in the RV industry. The reason why gas-electric style refrigerators are popular is because they're the best for boondocking. If you're going to be off-grid and you don't have some type of an enhanced power system, then a gas-electric refrigerator can be kind of your saving grace. It gives you the ability to cool your food down and have a freezer in a unit that is essentially running off of propane. It uses electricity to start, and it can operate on electricity when there is no propane. However, if you are, again, boondocking and you don't have any type of electrical connections, once it starts off of your battery, the propane kicks in and it uses absorption technology to cool down the refrigerator and freezer. The problem with gas electric is almost any other time that you want to use it. First of all, they can take a long time to cool down. In some cases, people will start their refrigerator and turn it on, turn the propane on, and have the thing going before they even take off on the road, simply because a gas electric refrigerator can take anywhere between 3 to 6 hours to efficiently cool down. And then when you get where you're going, you have to make sure that you're almost perfectly level, because if you're not, you can run into a scenario where the refrigerator simply won't cool. And in many cases, even if you are level, they have a hard time cooling. Whenever you load your groceries and things inside of the refrigerator, you have to be very careful that you don't put things that are excessively warm or at room temperature in the refrigerator unless there's really cold items in there. And you don't want to overstuff a gas electric refrigerator, especially with things that need to be cooled down or kept at a cold temperature like meat, milk, eggs, things like that. And again, they're really good at providing you off-grid cooling, which is what a lot of people look for. Now, the second one, and before we jump up to residential, we're going to talk about 12-volt. 12-volt, again, becoming increasingly more popular in the industry. 12-volt refrigerators essentially operate directly off of the 12-volt battery system you have in your RV. So what are the perks of 12-volt systems? Well, first of all, they are more efficient in terms of power usage than your traditional 110 or your residential style full-size refrigerators that you're used to seeing, which is really nice. But the downside to that is, to keep them efficient, they have to be relatively small. So this is about the largest 12-volt refrigerator you're going to see. And this specific one is about a 10 cubic foot refrigerator freezer. So it's not huge, it's not tiny by any means, but it's definitely not what I would consider to be anywhere near the size of your typical residential refrigerator. So compare 10 cubic foot to traditionally a 14 to 22.8 cubic foot residential model. Now, what these are great at is operating off of your battery system to keep cool. Something you want to keep in mind whenever you're looking at a 12-volt system is that it is going to put an additional strain on the battery of your coach. So if you don't have an enhanced battery system, a system like this can drain your house batteries relatively quickly, which means if you have a good solar setup to maintain your house batteries, then a 12-volt system can work very good in an off-grid boondocking environment. If you don't have an enhanced battery charging system and you plan on boondocking quite often, then I would recommend a gas electric. But for those of you who might do boondocking maybe once out of every 5 trips, this is a good option, again, as long as you have some way to keep your house batteries charged, because that's specifically what this system is going to pull off of. So I just want you to keep that in mind. These are really great systems, and they're getting bigger and bigger as well. Before, 12-volt systems were pretty much relegated to those smaller, more compact systems that are about the size of just the bottom refrigerator portion here. Now they're getting larger, they're looking nicer, they're definitely feeling more residential. They're just not quite up to the size and specs of a residential refrigerator. And again, they are going to put quite a bit of strain on your house batteries, so you're going to want to have some way to maintain your house batteries. What we've gone over so far: gas electric, really good for boondocking, really good for dry camping. 12-volt, Really good for people who primarily are going to be connected, but occasionally are going to be boondocking, or that have an enhanced battery charging system that have the ability to maintain house batteries, especially if you're going to be out in the middle of nowhere and this is pulling amperage off of your house batteries. So next we're going to look at a full residential refrigerator. This is becoming more and more popular in fifth wheels, and a smaller version of this even in travel trailers. Now this is a 22.8 cubic foot LG residential refrigerator. What's really nice about these refrigerators are, first of all, they give you pretty much the capacity you would expect at home, maybe slightly less. I think most house refrigerators tend to be in that 25 to 30 cubic foot range, so it's just a hair smaller, but you couldn't tell by looking inside of them. What makes these really nice is that they're very reliable from a cooling perspective. They are relatively inexpensive to operate, which means they don't pull a lot of power. They give you more capacity than just about anything else on the market. They can house pretty much anything you need, especially if you're considering full-time RVing. And what's also really nice is, believe this or not, they're actually far less expensive than gas electric refrigerators. If you ever look at the spec sheet or the build sheet on an RV, you'll see that your traditional gas electric refrigerator is about $1,800. If you look at a unit like this, it's generally a little over $1,000. So you usually save some money by going to a residential refrigerator. Also, I believe they're a little safer because there's nothing dealing with fire behind your refrigerator. They don't require the same type of ventilation. They don't require the same type of maintenance. Now, what you want to keep in mind is if this unit ever completely fails and you have to completely have the thing swapped out, let me close the doors here so it's not yelling at me. But if you ever have to have this unit completely swapped out, that could be a challenge. In some cases, they have to remove a window to actually get the unit outside. In some cases, there's enough room to squeeze it through and get it outside the front door, but it definitely is more challenging to work on if something fails. Now, if it's something that's replaceable or a component that can be fixed, then it's probably roughly the same as working on a gas electric or a 12-volt system. But what's nice about these is the capacity, the reliability, as well as the convenience. Now, some negatives. First of all, aside from, again, its size, the biggest negative of something like this is the fact that it requires an inverter to operate, which means you're converting your 12-volt power system to AC power from DC power to power this, just like you would plugging it into a wall in your home. So the challenge with that is the fact that you need to have a relatively large inverter to be able to power this unit. So this specific RV probably has anywhere between a 1,000 to 3,000 watt inverter to convert the DC power into AC to be able to provide power to power up this refrigerator. So you have an extra component that if that component goes out, you're going to lose your refrigerator. Now the backup plan to that, and what some people have actually done when that inverter does go out, or if that inverter goes out, they'll run an extension cord in from whatever power connection they're hooked up to, and they'll simply plug it in right into the refrigerator and they're powered off shore power. And that's a good fix for a lot of people. Now, predominantly folks who are going to be at an RV park connected to 30 or 50 amp power are going to want to opt for a residential refrigerator, simply because they do pull more power and that inverter is going to require more power to operate efficiently. Some folks have some pretty extreme battery banks and solar power systems that allow them to operate their residential refrigerator off of their power system, which is completely fine. And if that's your setup, then you can pretty much use this anywhere you go. The key though is if you run out of solar power and you don't have sun coming and charging up your battery banks, this can drain your house batteries relatively quickly. Now, again, there are some folks that have added 6, 8, 10 lithium-ion style batteries to their rig, or AGM batteries to their rig, and they have a really advanced solar system and they can power a residential refrigerator. Shoot, in some cases they can even power their air conditioning system for a reasonable amount of time, but rarely is it going to be good enough or long enough to keep you powered up off-grid for several days at a time, or in the event if, let's say, it's a really cloudy day and you're not getting enough power to your solar panels to keep your battery bank charged whenever you're using a refrigerator like this. In many cases, I've seen RVers actually bring with them an additional 12-volt chest-style refrigerator to move stuff to if they don't have enough power to power up their residential refrigerator whenever they're at a truck stop or they're at an area where they might be spending the night, but they want to keep their stuff cool. So that's something to keep in mind. And they do make a lot of those really nice portable battery packs that can give you power for several hours, which can extend the ability for you to stay at a truck stop or whatnot while you're stopped overnight, and still allow your refrigerator to stay cool enough to keep your stuff overnight. So that's just also something to consider. So what we've talked about so far is gas electric is really good for boondockers. Secondly would be your 12-volt system. 12-volt systems generally require the additional investment of a solar power system if you want to use it in a dry camping situation, and additional batteries to power it whenever you're off grid, especially overnight. Overnight being the key, because solar is not very effective overnight. So you rely on your battery backup. This can work in that environment as well, but it requires a much more extreme battery setup to be able to operate overnight, and it's going to drain them much quicker. But this is ideal if you predominantly stay at RV parks, RV resorts, and places where you can connect to shore power. Whether you're mooch docking or staying at an RV park or resort, this is ideal for those environments because it's going to give you much more of a residential style refrigerator. It actually is a full residential refrigerator. In terms of reliability, they're all really reliable. As long as they're taken care of, you keep them clean. Gas electric specifically, you want to keep any dirt daubers out of, you want to clean the back of it. They probably pose the biggest safety risk if something does go wrong, simply because it can lead to a fire because there's a pilot light running. But if you're looking at reliability across all platforms when properly maintained, they all operate really, really well. There's people with 30-year-old RVs that have gas electric refrigerators that work just as good as the day they bought them. In some cases even better, because they've added ventilation fans to the top, to the outside, to provide additional airflow into the system to help it cool down a little bit more. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate the folks here at Colonia Del Rey for letting me come out here and film to let you guys see the differences between these different refrigerators. I hope you have a great day, and if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.